Okay, I think I have the floor. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Thanks, Brian and Cap. And it's always an honor to be asked to do anything for DE and with DE and about DE. So this just is just another honorable thing to do and a privilege and all that fun stuff. I It's been a while since I've been on here and definitely not in video, but um I'm going to just go through some of the latest stuff in my life. I feel like now that everything is progressing so much, and we always have these heart lines and all these, pray for people and situations and circumstances, and it just kind of hit me that it's just never going to end, and it's not supposed to. When we're alive, we're supposed to deal with all this stuff, and we kind of get this illusion that we're going to be some point everybody's going to be happy and nothing's going to ever happen, and that's actually doesn't happen while we're alive. So um the whole definition of chiropractic for life is a concussion of forces, and that's translates as stress. So the real thing is, how are we going to deal with everything that happens to us? And everything ends up being a test, and it's all about the DE message of love, and everything gets broken down into that. If everything in the universe breaks down as energy, that vehicle is carried through love and how we deal with it. But since the last time I was D in January, we had lots of hiccups of traveling and whatnot. Planned on getting back to D as soon as possible. But then on June 25th, I decided to have a stroke, and it just happened to be Vicky's birthday. So I'm going to just run through some of that and what I experienced as a straight chiropractor and some of the decisions of dealing with that, because we spend so much time talking about um, the philosophy in the sense of finding subluxations, adjusting subluxations, and getting in that wheel of doing that all the time, and educating about that. But before we even get there was that whole Reggie aspect of his N, letter N, where the N starts with the beginning of life and the recognition of and the acknowledgement and respect of innate intelligence, and that shows up in chiropractic hygiene. And I'll kind of go over a little bit how that affected me as a chiropractor going through something versus a layperson who somebody doesn't have that inside out philosophy. But when I had that stroke on a Thursday morning, I had woke up just like a lot of people do. I was off that morning and I had the cat walking all over me, and I'm thinking I should probably get up and feed the cat. And it was about maybe 7:15 in the morning, and I remember thinking, God, I just feel just kind of off. And so I just decided to lay there, and I thought, I don't have to get up just yet. I'm not going to get up yet. And so I thought, God, I'm dizzy though. I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom. So I get up and go to the bathroom, and it's Vicky's birthday, so I'm texting her in the bathroom, happy birthday. And so I'm thinking, God, I'm still dizzy. So it's not really changing. I'm going to get up and I'm going to just go to bed. I'm just going to lay there for a bit. And I get up and it's even worse. And I end up crashing in my bathroom. And I don't even think I knocked anything over, but I hit pretty hard because I'm a relatively big guy. And so I make noise. And when I'm not coordinated, I make even more noise. So I managed to get back to the bed, and I couldn't lay down. I didn't even have the coordination to lay down at that point. So I was sitting there and holding out a poster bed. And my mom happened to be staying with my son and I. And so she comes in the room and she says, "What the hell is going on in here?" And I said, literally, almost like knee jerk reaction, like almost, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, "Mom, I'm having a stroke. Call 911." But to take that back, actually, I'm just remembering right now, a very big thing for me is I ended up having what they told me was a psychotic event, and that scared the shit out of me. In fact, one of the reasons why I fell was because I lost the right side of my body. So I lost sensation and ability to move the right side of my body. Um, but before that happened, I went to a place that was just crazy. Literally, it wasn't a near death thing. I just appreciated really quickly my sound mind and body aspect. And I lost all sense of time. And it was just really super terrifying and humbling because I didn't even know you could feel that way. And I guess when I try to have empathy for different people and how they're feeling, or even different clients or what they've gone through, we always do it through our own lens. But when that changes, things get really weird really quick. But it was so unsettling that actually when that finished and I just had the incoordination before my mom came in the room, I was actually relieved. I was actually relieved that my right side wasn't working, but I was back in my mind again because I had literally lost all mental capacity for, I don't know how long it was, but it felt like forever. Anyway, so my mom calls 911. My son comes in to help me put my shirt on, and he doesn't even realize. She woke him up out of deep sleep, and I'm like, buddy, you're going to have to help me put my whole shirt on because I can't lift my right arm at all. So he helped me do that. They, the paramedics and people came and they brought me down the stairs. I couldn't get down the stairs on my own. They did all the kinds of facey stuff, their symmetry and whatever, and that was actually relatively good. But they got me in the ambulance, and as I got in the ambulance, funny thing, as they're about to close the doors, I see a neighbor going for a walk, and I'm like, oh crap, it's a neighbor. It's one of those things where you don't want a neighbor to see you. And so get to the hospital, and they do the MRIs, and what didn't I have done? But what's really interesting is that the whole time it was in the hospital, at no point did I have to wear a mask, or I wasn't asked anything about COVID, which was really interesting, except for when they released me and they took me to the front door. They insisted I wear a mask, which I wouldn't do anyway. But they gave me a mask, and they were happy to see me go at that point. But when I was in that hospital, I spent a day in the ICU. I spent the next day in a regular room, and then they really released me. But there was so many kind of comedy of error things along the way, and I posted about some of it. But as a chiropractor, it makes you really realize how important bedside manner is, because there's just so many kinds of considerations and whatnot. But what I thought was interesting was that I didn't think about this till days later, but I realized the whole time I was there, nobody ever, considering the stroke stigma, I was never actually asked anything about chiropractic adjustments and stroke. So for as much as it sounds like when people have strokes, they get inundated with chiropractic adjustment questions if they end up in the ER or wherever, that never came up for me at all. Now, I don't know if it's because I was a chiropractor and they just didn't go there, but you think if it was a clinical consideration for them to do, they'd bring it up anyway. Either way, that never came up, which I thought was really interesting. When I did get home, which was 2 days later, it was just like a classic chiropractor. Monday rolls around, and I'm like, I'm working it. I had my faculties back at that point. They actually gave me a clot busting drug that I had to sign off for. And the funny part is, I'm left-handed, my right side's not working. So I'm pretty sure that if my left side would have gone down and I couldn't have moved it, they would have probably stuck the pen in my hand that couldn't have moved anyway and had me at least make an X, because evidently that's a pretty serious thing. And that's probably what opened up the clot I had. But it was the posterior cerebral artery. My sister-in-law is a cardiac nurse. She said if that would have moved a segment over, I would have probably been down for sure. The cardiologist, when I did go see the cardiologist about 3 weeks later, he just looked me right in the eye. He goes, people do not come in here in the shape you're in. They don't have all their faculties and all the lights come back on. They're either dead or they're incapacitated or they have a permanent disability. And thank God I don't. But it was a very humbling experience. And to this day, I don't feel quite right. I was joking with Brian that I call myself hemisphere man. My right side, when I feel semi-extreme kind of sensations, doesn't feel the same. If I rub my scalp on this side, it feels different. There's a little dysesthesia, paresthesia, whatever you want to call it, different from this side. If I shave, that blade feels different on the right than the left, even though I still feel it. So if that's the extent of it, I'm happy. I almost feel like I've been, shot and grazed by a bullet, and I'm just recovering from the grazing. But boy, the experience was very humbling. I am on Eliquis. I'm on a blood thinner, and that was a big decision for me to make. It had to be made early because in their process of figuring things out, I had a stroke in my brain, but they said it came from a clot in my leg that traveled up through my heart. And you guys know this, it's just a board question, but about a quarter of, you know, a quarter of us have a patent foramen valve, and that's in the atrium, between the atrium, that normally closes up when you're born, and mine didn't. And the funny part is they say, and I've been told by everybody, it is not clinically significant unless you have a stroke, and then they want it closed immediately, which is a little ironic. I've been working with Jack Wolfson, the paleocardiologist. You guys probably know him because he's been in chiropractic circles, health circles like Cal Jam and whatnot. His wife's a chiropractor. He practices in Arizona. He's been working with me. I've been doing a lot of work with him. And I actually told him at one point, I said, you actually think like a chiropractor, because, all the guys here or in the traditional medical model, they're all about, we see this effect. How do we treat this effect till we get a desired result, right? That's classic medicine. But, Jack reminded me that he goes, he's a cardiologist, right? So he knows that gig too. But he said, though, and I love the way he put it. He said, it wasn't the it wasn't the stroke in your brain. It wasn't the hole in your heart. It wasn't the clot in your leg. He said, we got to figure out why your blood is sticky. And blood just isn't sticky. So they ruled out 3 major things that they needed to do. And he said the first thing's cancer, which they did. And they, at least where they can look for it, right? But just for anybody out there, if they've ever considered a colonoscopy test, he strongly suggested I do Cologuard. I'd never heard about it before then. It's just a mail-in poop test. And he said, not only is it more convenient and non-invasive, he said the results are actually consistently more accurate than a colonoscopy. Now, again, that's coming from cardiologists. That's their world. But I'm like, cool, I'll take it. So I got that done as soon as possible, ruled that out. Then he said the other thing is we have to rule out, what was the other thing? Oh, genetic factors. And the hospital did that as well and ran some genetic tests, and I don't fit their list of, genetically predisposed, abnormally coagulating people. So he said, then the next thing, which is good news, is it's adaptational. For some reason, your body is in fight-flight mode, and it is inflaming because it's trying to heal from something you're exposed to. So we ran about $2,000 of environmental tests on me, heavy metal tests, dietary stuff, just to see what my body's actually triggering to inflame from. And so that was really interesting. But what it ended up being was that, because Judson was asking me, how'd you lose a bunch of weight? And I've lost almost 45 pounds in 2.5 months, which sounds pretty amazing. And it kind of is, but it's, when you get the shit scared out of you, it's easy to do. Because we think, oh, I should do this, but man, I'll tell you what, ever since then, I have, you get a different perspective. You go, okay, it's either change this stuff and get back to normal and be healthier and everything connected with it, or sign on for all the BS that they want to do. I did start Eliquis the Sunday after I took that clot busting drug, because they couldn't even give it to me right away. They had to wait a couple days. And so I started, and one of the reasons why I started was because if I'm in the same state that could reproduce a stroke, they told me if I get another stroke, you're going to get hard, and rarely is it even just as light. It's usually a lot worse. In fact, if you ever have conditions and stuff, you tend to look up stuff more. And when I looked it up, it's the old world is apoplexy, I think it is. Which literally means struck down by violence. So if you can get any more like intimidating a condition, it kind of felt like that. But I started Eliquis, the blood thinner, because I had to buy some time to make some changes. And like I was telling Brian, I said, we get into the adjusting and finding subluxations and adjusting and whatnot, but before we even get there, we have to respect and acknowledge the innate intelligence, and that falls under chiropractic hygiene. And I just literally wasn't looking for, how do I decrease inflammation? How do I lose weight? I was literally trying to go, what am I designed for? What is my body? It's 2020. What am I exposed to, either from the grocery store or from my environment, that I shouldn't get? And as I did that, the weight just started falling off. I assume the inflammation's come way down. But it's been a good ride, and basically I'm doing paleo, hardcore paleo, real hardcore paleo. with some intermittent fasting. And it's almost biblical. It's just really old world, you know, lifestyle, not diet, but just really lifestyle, just getting back to the basics. And so the weight's just fallen off, and I feel so much better. And I've been working out like crazy, and that's all been good. But when I went to the cardiologist, they want to close this hole in my heart. And the reason why, too, that I decided to take the blood thinners, he basically gave me an ultimatum. He says, if you don't take the blood thinner, we will not close the hole in your heart unless you're on this blood thinner. So I needed to decide, working with Wolfson and the natural the paleocardiologist guy, to buy time and actually have a meeting with him next week, and the clotting people the week after. And that's when I decided to do whether to do the closing the hole. So it looks like now we're going to plan for not doing it, because we're not sold that it's really the hole anyway. So anyway, just a little bit about that. They put a piece of plastic with nickel in your heart. And if you guys ever seen or read the book Cosmic Heart, I mean, the electromagnetic fields coming off the heart can be measured up to 6 feet away. And I just find it more than a little ironic that these COVID parameters are 6 feet away. So now not even our hearts are touching or communicating or aware of each other, much less being worried about something being breathed on somebody. So I did not want to put plastic and nickel in my electromagnetic field generating powerhouse in my chest. So we're gonna about 95%, we're not going to do that, and I'm just going to stay with my deal, and I'm going to take myself off Eliquis. I also told Brian I had to remind more than a couple doctors that you didn't put me on medication. I put myself on medication. Nobody ever has somebody put them on medication. They do it for themselves unless they want to hand their brain over to whoever. I told him, I said, I took your advisement when I put myself on my own medication, and I will take your advisement when I take myself off, which I'm planning. I actually counted the pills in my thing, and I've got about 2 weeks left, and it's about a week right after that meeting coming up where I have to decide. So it's about perfect timing, which, by the way, ironically, Eliquis is supposedly the new bomb. It costs like $527 a month, which I'm pretty much paying out of pocket. And in fact, whenever I picked up this stuff in the last couple of months, they go, "Are you sure you don't have, insurance? Better insurance pay for that?" And but the irony is, if I want to take warfarin or Coumadin, that's $5 a bottle. So I'd much rather do that in the meantime. So this is all the stuff I've been dealing with. Oh, and by the way, that they said even if they fix the hole in my heart, it's still not going to bring my chance of a stroke down to 0. In fact, their numbers, for as much as they tried to sell that or patching that hole in my heart, was going to bring my chance of a stroke down from 17% down to 3%. So I'm like, geez, I think I can do better on my own with that. So that's pretty much the deal. And what else do I have? I don't know. I guess it's just a good reminder that we've all got stuff going on, and it's everything's a blessing. So the fact that I'm even here talking to you guys is a blessing. I think it's really good, for as hardcore as I am about chiropractic and not doing therapies in my office or whatever, that there's a time and place that I'd at least decided, and that's such a personal decision for everybody, where I had decided to treat my limitations of matter, basically, and get the reminder that if I'm adapting hard enough, long enough, I got a wake-up call to make changes with that. One of the things is that, Jack reminded me, was that emotions and mental stress will cause abnormal coagulation of blood and clotting, including anger. So that's another thing for me to be really aware of. And it's hard with everything going on not to get angry occasionally. And I kind of feel like, with the stuff going on in the world and the stuff going on in healthcare and in our states, is you don't almost have to be dead not to be angry. But so I'm not, I'm actually kind of wrestle with myself a little bit about the whole anger thing, because I think it's just an emotion we feel, and then what we do with it, if we bottle it in or if we let it run us, that's a whole different thing. But I just channel that. I try to channel it very positively. It's just another emotion, and I just recognize it and use it. Just today, the COVID stuff, I just got notified by my son's school that they're not going to give him an exemption to go in for the one day they were going to let him go into the class because we're doing the hybrid here to have an exemption for a mask. So I said, well, I guess we're going all online at home. And it's just another decision that we're all making as we go, just depending on where we're at in our states, our practices, what's required. But it really just, it feels crazy out there, doesn't it? I just watched 1984 again. I'm having my son read Fahrenheit 451 because, as you guys are realizing, we're no longer book burning, we are bit burning. But even in the book, in the movie, 1984, there's that poignant part at the end where basically the dissenter, the guy's been hiding his journal in the wall and trying to keep away from the state. He ends up on a gurney, and there, the guy representing the state is saying, "What's 2 + 2?" And his right answer is supposed to be 5. And when he starts out, he's very affirmatively saying, "No, it's 4." And they shock him, and they get to a point where they ask him, "What's 2 + 2?" And he's crying, and he says, "I don't know." And so they finally get to the point at the very end where they're shocking him through this period, and he gets to a place where they ask him what's 2 + 2, and he says 5. And not only just says 5, he's happy to do it because he wants to please the state. And I just want to remind all of you that 2 + 2 is still 4. It's always been 4. That's an immutable principle. It's a mathematical principle. It doesn't change. It doesn't matter what the state says or some other authority of some group or somebody representing somebody. 2 + 2 is still 4. It always will be. And we have all the equivalent in all our principles, and they will never change no matter how much we try. We recognize them. We can't be convinced otherwise. And that's all I've got tonight. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Maddie. I appreciate it, man. I'm glad I got to hear your story. And glad we got to hear your story. But everybody, we didn't get to go over. We missed the intro. Sorry about that. But DE is, I think, the 15th through the 18th, if I'm not mistaken. We rescheduled Greece for next year in July, so look out for that. There it is. So there's October 15 to 18. Then Atlanta, January 21 to 24. Sarasota, April 25, May 1st. You can see it. And then Greece, July 16th to 17th. GCC Golf Tournament next month, October 8th. And there it is, Chiro Cup. Thank you. And that is it, man. We'll see everybody next week. Matt, thank you so much for doing this. We love and appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Love you.
All right. Take care, man.
Bye-bye.